can see some snow-capped hills in the distance. Not really showing up on the phone. Let's do a little panorama here. Jay Baba. We're gonna head back down toward the meadow cottage now. Okay, here we are now. We're in Buckeye Flats. We're looking at the new well installation here and panning over. Give you an idea. This is the meadow that's above the meadow cottage meadow. So that area through those trees there is the way to the meadow cottage. And we're now on the 101 property here. Wow, it's so beautiful. The wind is rippling the grass. It's just gorgeous. Looks like it's live. Okay, now we're back onto the main easement road. This goes out to Highway 140. And this is normally where I read the news in the soft dust. You can see the footprints of all the animals that have come by from the day before, but it's so windy that I'm not really seeing anything but human footprints. A lot of times you can see all these little animal prints, but today there's no news. You can see another perspective of the children's pondal looking toward the Sahavas area there. And through the trees, you can't see it, it's the caretaker's house. There's the view looking up toward the caretaker's house. Our little pump house there. Beyond that is our little budding orchard. And looking down over here is the go down. The area where we would normally have a big tent set up for the Sahavas. Looking over this way, tent cabin. Once again, the children's pond. Here we are on the final leg of our walking tour. We're heading back down to Baba's cabin. Finish up at the creek down there. Just take you on a quick walk through Baba's garden here. It's planted with native plants. It's right here in front of Baba's cabin. I wish I could tell you the names of all these diverse plants in here. Okay, here we are back at the creek. This is our final stop on this wonderful walking tour, virtual Sahavas
Hi everyone.
walking tour. Thank you for joining us. One last look at Baba's beautiful manifestation here. Jai Baba.
Paul, we didn't get to see inside Baba's cabin.
Well, you'll just have to go in person.
Oh, too far.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful log, cabin, and there's quite with Baba's chair inside that he really sat on. It's got quite an atmosphere. It's wonderful. So Jay Baba, everybody, and in person with us are Paul and Therese, who Yeah, it was a great tour, Paul. You did a good job. Okay, so moving right along, we
Does anyone have any questions about the property? Or I know that was a quite a small tease of Meherana, but Paul can certainly answer any questions or talk more about the property. Or
Yeah, Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about how big the property is and how it was first originated and buying it and stuff? Or is that later on?
I have
I think
Kristen's
Christy and Betty are going to cover the history
Yeah.
of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
good questions.
That's a good question. Yeah, we can save that for
It's
a
now
little
300
bit.
acres, is it not?
It's what?
We can answer
Is it
that.
exactly 300 acres? Is it not?
No, it's 289.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and it's two, we originally bought one parcel and then the adjoining parcel became available and we bought that. So the two parcels together add up to 289. Was kind of interesting. You know, you hear about the 101 names of God and the adjoining parcel was 101 acres. So
Yeah.
it was sort of felt like it was a Baba related thing there that he wanted us to have that piece of property. And it really makes a big difference having that extra piece of land next to the original purchase. Because if we hadn't had that, there was some energy before we bought it from the previous owners to try to subdivide it and put in a little housing tract there. And it would have really affected the atmosphere of Meherana if that had happened. So it was a real blessing that we were able to purchase that.
Speaking of atmosphere, there is just really something special, I think, about, and I think I've heard you say that, Paul. You lived there. I remember one time a few of us went off to Yosemite, and honestly, it was I didn't want to leave. I think Baba just creates this really special, and it wasn't as nice to go to Yosemite. It wasn't meant to be that day, but it's just yeah, there's a real special feeling. A lot of love.
Yeah. Yosemite nearby, it's this beautiful national park. It's called the crown jewel of the national parks of the United States. So it's a really gorgeous and special place with a lot of unique geology there. But Meherana has a wonderful, loving, embracing atmosphere. So it's nice to be there. A lot of times our Sahavas in the spring is during Memorial Day, so Yosemite is just packed, and it's not a good time to be doing a side trip up to Yosemite. So if you come to visit during one of the spring Sahavases, then probably a side trip to Yosemite is not a good choice. In the fall, in October, that's a different time then, and it wouldn't be a bad time to go.
Speaking of Sahavas, the in-person Sahavas is back, and at what is it, May 21st? Therese, which
Memorial Weekend.
Memorial Weekend, as always, right? Yeah. So this is a little warm up, folks.
Yeah, definitely would love to see as many people at Meherana, considering we haven't been open for Sahavas for a number of years. But we're really excited. Yeah, I've got the lovely brochure that Lisa worked on, and we've got Anil and VJ Nori, who are our guest speakers. And they share their experience of meeting Baba growing up in the Meher Baba family in India. And then we have Adrian Shamshad, who's going to be a singer, and Kai Slameda, which he lives up in Oregon, right, Jim?
Yes, he's our local boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it should be a fun-filled weekend. And of course, what makes Meherana really appetizing as well is we have wonderful food. So we have caterers that come from Merced, actually bring what do you call those big cooking stoves, and they make the naan, on-site fresh naan, and it's really, really lovely.
Indian
So-
caters. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have really good food the entire weekend. No one leaves starving. There's always enough food.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Kai Slamenda is going to be there. He's a young Baba lover in his mid-20s, has a degree in music, and I was there the day he was born. He was in such he was in such a rush to get to living on the earth again that he came about 7 or 8 weeks early, and came out as this little 1 pound package that ended up being $1 million baby, and spending all time in the hospital and stuff. And now he's a big man and doing very well. And his music is absolutely wonderful. I'm sure you'll all really enjoy it.
Great.
Kind of jazzy feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he can do everything: jazz, folk, you name it. He can do it all.
So I wanted to tell you, next we're going to have Christy's history and a few other testimonials um, of, uh, of times at Meherana. But for some reason, Christy's video, her history, it must have gotten a bit cut off when they recorded it, because, so I'm going to fill in with the early story of how it all happened, Bao stock. And then play Christy's video. So, yeah, Bao had been coming to LA Sahavas for a few years. He started in the late 80s, and let's see, I think it was 1990. They were, after Sahavas, the mood is so great, you just kind of don't want to go. And Bao said, to Chrissy, he said, "Isn't there any place we could all go to be together?" And Christy said, "Well, we have some land and a half-built house up in Mariposa. We could camp maybe." So it was very spur of the moment. So she said, so Bao said, great. He wanted to go. So she got on the phone tree. This was now, mind you, it was 90. There was no email or, no texting. Got on the phone tree to the LA group who had been used to camping together. They would take trips out to the desert, and so this was some, other places bring tents and food and have weekend campouts. So this was something they did. So Christy called them, and she got together about 60 people. There were also some people from Northern California to come up. They called it, it was Silence Day. It happened that it was the first day was going to actually be Silence Day up there at Mariposa. Well, yeah, they arrived then in several carfuls, bringing their tents and food and all, set up camp. Now, Christy, I hope I have this exactly. Christy she asked me to tell the story, so I hope I got it right. If anybody knows different, let me know. They arrived. Oh, boy. Okay, this is my kitty. She's got to be part of it. They arrived, set up, and she said she realized that the first day of this event, with about 60 people kind of getting situated on their land, was going to be Silence Day. So they were going to have to communicate all in silence. So she, spur of the moment, said, let's go to Yosemite. So that was what they did. They carpooled. There were, I think she said 6 or 7, maybe 10 cars. Arriving at the gate, and the first car I don't know how I don't know what they told the person that they had to pay the money, but by the 10th car, but the 10th silence car, it was a production. So they all went and they had a picnic at Yosemite Falls campground or picnic ground. And Val sat by the Merced River and wrote guzzles, and they were all 60 of them silent. And Christy said she was beginning to realize that this might appear odd. So after they had their picnic, they she wrote notes and signed whatever. Let's go. So they all trooped back out, went to the Pearson's place, and she said that Chris had a great big sand pile, and this was what the kids did. She said it was a great day for the kids because their parents couldn't tell them to stop or to they were on their own pretty much. She said they were totally full of sand and dirt and needed to be hosed off by the end of the day. But it was just fun, being in nature for everybody. And then they had another, I believe, a couple of days where they could talk to each other and decided. Bao said, this will be a center. That was his comment. So they decided then and there they said, we'll be back, to form a committee to search for land up there. So that was what happened. And they came back monthly to meet, and they I think they were actually incorporated by the time they bought the property, newly incorporated. They developed criteria and bylaws, kind of the structure, the I guess you'd say the legal structure of the place. That all happened at these committee meetings, monthly committee meetings. And my notes say they went on for 3 years. They incorporated in 93, started in 1990. So they needed a place. There was at least 40 acres. They needed water on the place, and it had to be on a highway because land. If your land was off a highway, it meant that you had to get egress. You had to get through somebody else's property to get onto your place, which was an extra hassle. So all right. So here we are, and just happenstance. Christy had gotten a real estate license, kind of reluctantly. She wasn't really, and Chris wanted her to do that. So she had a real estate license and was working for a broker. And this property came up before it was even listed. The broker talked to her about it. And let's see, I think this is about when our video starts. So I will play our video. Okay.
And back tax. And she looks up and she says, it'll take $20,000. And immediately I felt Bob's presence very strong. I was kind of stunned. And then nevertheless, I informed her, I said, I don't think that the nonprofit will be able to get a loan. I mean, we don't have any record. We've only been incorporated a few months. And she said, oh, that's not a problem. You can just take over the existing private note in escrow. And I said, okay. And she said, what I really need is $2,000 right now. and the rest of the 20,000 within 30 days. Now I had the people who promised that they would send it. So I gave her a personal check for $2,000 right then. And I went and called the other board members. Now, the monthly payments were going to be about $1,891 a month. And the total cost, instead of being well over 200,000, ended up to be 154,000. So we had no monthly pledges at that time, but they all agreed, all the board members agreed, sight unseen, to go ahead with the purchase. So due to everyone's generosity, we never had any problem with the monthly payments, and we were able to pay off that land in 10 years. So we held the first Sahavas with Bao at our own Meherana property a few months later in the spring of 1994. And no sooner had we paid off the 189 acres in 2003 when the 101 acres adjoining the Meherana property came up for sale for $290,800, just before, like a week before the Sahavas with Bao. So previously, Bao had eyed that property across the fence and had told us, you should obtain that property because it bordered all of our activity areas. And at that time, he was consolidating all the property around Meherabad for his big master plan and all. And so he just said, you know, you should do this. So I made an announcement by the end of the Sahavas, and we had enough for the down payment by the end, and we put the land in escrow, and it closed right away. And in 2011, which was about 8 years later, all the promissory notes to acquire the 101 acres were paid off. And these generous donations that made these land purchases possible were really widespread from many people and from all over the world. So by the happenstances in this story, especially the timings of the purchases, beloved Baba's grace for us is shown. We showed up, we tried our best, we did the needful, but the true story is that beloved Baba was always there helping and guiding us on our way home to himself. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So one of the buildings, which is Baba's cabin on the property, always feels like a particular oasis of love to me. And, you know, in 2017, when the Detweiler fire ravaged Meherana, the firefighters who saved Baba's cabin said was their favorite building. That of all the buildings they'd saved, they thought that was their favorite. And, you know, I have to say, even my non-Baba lover husband says Baba's presence is very strong there, which is kind of funny. But so can you tell us why, what's so special about that building?
Well, we felt that the first building should be Baba's building, dedicated to Baba. And that was, so Baba's cabin was the first permanent structure that we built. And it was a big team effort with both the labor and the materials from the very beginning. Bao had given us Baba's chair from Meherazad, where Baba had sat in it at Mandali Hall, to have at Meherana. So when we were in India, Chris had the Coda stone for the cabin floor cut in Almanagar and shipped from Bombay to San Francisco. We wanted the same stone that was in the Samadhi in Baba's room in India. So we arranged that. And Jen Wilson crafted the beautiful windows, and the amazing stained glass windows were created by Amir Shafei from Los Angeles. And Bao insisted that we have a special event for the installation of Baba's chair, which meant the establishing of the permanent seat of Avatar Meher Baba at Meherana. We brought in the chair, Baba's chair, at the front gate, and we put it in a garden cart that was covered with Indian bedspreads and flowers. And we had a procession that wound down to Baba's cabin with dancing and music. We all wore Indian clothes. Val had actually thought it would be very nice if we had brought the chair from our house on the state highway to Meherana. But I informed him that there's just a lot of laws why that a parade wouldn't work that way. So he settled for the front gate and in. So amidst many Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jays, the chair was carried in and installed. And then Bao gave a short talk. But the important part of this story is that from that day forward, Baba's presence has never left the cabin. Truly, Meherana is a prayer to him, to be with us always there. And when we gather in Baba's cabin for prayers and arti, the atmosphere is especially beautiful. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So, tomorrow morning there will be, in the morning talk about Meherana's present, there will be a little movie showing all of the property, and you'll see the cabin. But we put on 2 Sahavas a year, and I'm wondering, Alan and Karen, if you can just, share any memories of some special times, a lot of musical guests, a lot of speakers, just whatever you want to remember.
When we were organizing the Meherana, I remember the attorney, the late Joe Harmon, came from Atlanta, and he was a friend of mine, obviously long distance. And we helped set up some of the bylaws and articles of incorporation. I've had the pleasure over the years of helping a little bit with that. Meherana's had guests because that's the attraction, obviously. And one of the interesting things is, concurrent to their having guests, is Karen and I have urban Savhouses. So I've always worked with Christy to make sure that we didn't cause any conflicts, particularly during the days when there was a outstanding mortgage on Meherana. So we would always confer so as not to conflict. In fact, some of the guests that came to Meherana first were ones I initiated, but they went to Meherana, then they came to the area.
Right.
I want to give some of the guest names, and I think you all probably know these people other than Val. Katie Irani came in '94, and it was a very funny scene.
Your sound is gone.
No, the host muted me.
Oh.
Katie and I were in the, can you hear me? Katie and I were in the food line, and in those days, the Stavasas were held during the New Life Week, October 16th, which is really cold up there. So she turned to me, and we were all dressed really warmly, and said, Alan, this is really cold here. It's not pleasant. It was the kind of cold where your tears freeze in your eyes. It's that kind of cold. So I said, I'll go talk to somebody and see if we can get this moved up a week. So it did get moved up a week to the first week in October, which is a little bit better. Some of the other guests we've had at Meherana over the years have been the twins, Franny Irani and Shireen Bonner. Sarvar, who was in the ashram, that's Franny Foreman's mom, who's a delight. She's gone now. Charles Haynes, the Connors, Ella Marks, who was a substitute at the last second because Kelly Bunty couldn't come, and she had one of the most spectacular experiences, the love that she felt. It changed her life in an ironic way. Tex Hightower, Marwan Mystery, who would be love to get out there again.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't leave his bedroom, I don't think. Ross and Jenny Keating, Nashawan on occasion, Tom and Kathy, of course, late Robert Dreyfus. Giovanna's been there on numerous. I know that Jane Mossman's been there, and Alan Wagner. And we've had lots of musicians, Dr. Newell, Jim Meyer, Bob Bean, who will be on, no, he's not going to be on this show. The Nordines en masse, Ward Parks, who also does programs there, and he also does the music. Billy Goodrum, Larry Thrasher, who we saw earlier in a picture, Mark and Lisa, and Divine Maggie's. I'm sure there's others that I've forgotten, but Marwan Dubash, who turned out to be incredibly funny, much funnier than I ever imagined. In fact, it was spectacularly funny, and it was very pleasing to me. All in all, the guests are really a stimulant, and everybody enjoys it. And it's wonderful between the music and the speakers. And of course, Bao would always speak for hours and hours, and he would talk and talk and when he was coming. But we've had other guests beyond Bao, of course. And
Yeah. I think, Karen, do you remember any more? Or
but you unmute yourself.
Karen, you're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I, of course, remember Baoji being there. I remember aside from mornings in the house, Janice and Joanna and others, we all listened while Bao did his morning emails and all the wonderful talks that Bao gave. I also have a wonderful memory, and I think it was Billy Goodrum. We were down, like Ellen had said, by where the garden is now in Baba's cabin. And I think Debbie and Peter Nardine were guests that time, but I think Billy was also there. Someone else was there. Anyway, at one point, everybody started dancing in the aisles. And that was so much fun. It was really a lot of fun. The other thing is that choral singing, the musical guests would work during the Sahavas. They'd have rehearsal time, and those that wanted to sing along with them Rainey, I remember doing this very clearly, would all get together and they would practice singing. And it was just so informal. It was so nice because it gave everybody the opportunity to be part of the Sahavas, to be part of the guests. The guests are too numerous. There are too many memories there, but we look forward to new memories when we come again and new guests come. So, Jai Baba.
Can I add
Sure.
something?
Sure.
In the May Savasas, it could be like 100 and really hot, as you know.
Yeah.
And when the kids were younger, the parents would take them to the municipal pool in Mariposa. I know that quite well. And later, when we had the Pandal up at the top level, not at the bottom, but at the level it's at now, Chris Pearson, out of compassion, put what's called misters in the above us. And we would sit there and the water would spritz down on us. I remember one time it was so hot, I sat next to Adele for about 6 hours. We didn't go to the bathroom at all because we knew if we got up, the water was spritzing down right on us. It was so hot, if you walked outside, you would dry in about 2 minutes. But I want to say something about Adele, Adele Walker, who's now going to Baba. What a spectacular person. She'd come up from LA and she would actually walk, she was 90-ish. She would walk down to Baba's cabin with me, arm in arm. And that was easy enough, so to speak. But coming up, she would walk too. And it's straight up it's hard enough for people in their 30s or 40s, but here's a woman 90, and she never lost enthusiasm. Anyway, give her credit.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. So I know a lot of people, even in the early days, would come. I mean, now we often have more than 100, but how did everybody get fed? I mean, Christy, like, I'm pretty sure you had a lot to do with that. So,
well, yeah, the Sahaba's kitchen was so much fun in the early days and for years. And again, it was only possible by a volunteer team effort to provide food for so many. So usually there were at least 100 people there. And in 2008, there were 180 there. So in the beginning, before it started, I had discussed plans for preparing meals with Alan Wagner, who has been in charge of all the meals in Meherana for pilgrims, both at the Pilgrim Center and the Meher Pilgrim Retreat, for about 40 years. And after talking with him, he told Roz Taubman, who was visiting Meherana at that time, who had her own successful restaurant in Myrtle Beach, that she should help us out. And she did. She drew Chris a floor plan for the kitchen. She gave me a list of commercial kitchen items that we needed. And at first we rented those items from Fresno, a 90-mile trip one way. And later we purchased them. And then each year Roz would come up with the basic menu and I would spreadsheet it into all the various shopping lists that were needed to get the food up into the mountains. And I would call in a massive order of produce into Rayleigh's in Oakhurst, which is about 30 miles away. And they were fantastic. They would give us a discount. And not only that, they would put it all on trolleys and load it into our truck from the back of the store. And then we would make all-day shopping trips to Costco and Trader Joe's and Merced and Fresno just before the Sahavas. And Chris would rent refrigerators and we would have them ready for the grocery arrivals. And then we carefully had to arrange all the food in the refrigerator so they would be found throughout the weekend. And we would label the refrigerators. And then Roz and her team would arrive. And Roz was a phenomenal chef. She brought in Mark Smith and Malcolm from Tucson, who had a restaurant there. And also Bobby Bugia came a few times. And they were all awesome chefs. Alan Wagner, again, when I'm going to tell you about this next story and I say Alan, we're not talking about Alan Talbot. We're talking just for the next few minutes about Alan Wagner. Alan Wagner himself came and cooked with Roz one Sahavas. And Alan had to serve meat with every single meal because of the vegetarian menus in Maribod for so many decades. He was so delighted to serve maybe even more than one kind of meat at every meal. And one afternoon, Alan and Roz got in a heated discussion right in the middle of the kitchen. And Alan had taken upon himself to decide that he must make his grandmother's German potato salad for us. And there were no red bell peppers on hand. And it just couldn't be done without those red bell peppers. And he wanted someone to go to town and get them. And of course, we're always on a tight time scale, turning out 3 meals for that many people. And so Roz turns around, she's got her apron on, she's got her hands on her hip, and she's holding this big spatula, and she looks at Alan, and she says that he better not turn prima donna on her now. And then she arranged for the red bell peppers. And the potato salad was delicious. We all enjoyed it. And then after many years of the professional chefs coming and training, I took over the menu and I would cook and I would find other people who wanted to cook also. But in the background were all the volunteers who were all crucial in prepping and preparing this massive amount of food. Anybody who wanted to could come in and get to work. So that was really important and gave it a beautiful family atmosphere. And even the children were welcome. They always had to wash their hands like everyone else. And then they loved to help with the dessert, especially the chocolate sauce for the sundaes. And it was also a haven for the significant others, people who felt welcome to come, but maybe really weren't into Baba and didn't care to attend the programs. And they became a mainstay in the kitchen. And they would show up every time. And really, I don't know what I would have done without them. And we had a great time. And last but not least, the Sahavas kitchen functioned really well because of Herman Lowe and his cleanup volunteers who enthusiastically kept everything amazingly clean and hygienic throughout all those days of the Sahavas. So overall, it was an amazing opportunity for service to feed Baba's lovers at his Sahavas. Jai Baba.
Hey, Robin. Anybody want to add to their experience in the kitchen, which sadly disappeared during the Detweiler fire? But
When I would come up to Meherana, as I mentioned earlier, I was pooped. I needed rest and relaxation. But in the face of Herman Lowe's stank eye, it was impossible to refuse him. He would walk around while we were eating a meal and get volunteers to clean up. And I felt like I have to give one at least over the numerous meals we were getting fed. So I'd raise my hand. The way the setup was fascinating. You had a long trough with a power washer, and that was the first person. Then the next, those pots and pans and such would go to the dishwasher, the heavy dishwasher. I like that one. And then that would go to the lighter dishwash to the right, and then it would go to the dryer. And I was thinking yesterday when I was doing the wash, although we were very tired, it was very intense. You didn't have a lot of time to space out. The windows were right there, and it was set up like that. And you could stare out the window. And Michaeline's husband, Greg, mentioned, which I'm sure I knew, but he was intelligent enough to mention that, Greg, that you could see Baba's cabin if you stared out the window from there. And then, now I think about it, it's true. But it was quite a team effort, and you had to move quickly. I had a lot of background in the restaurant business from my prior life. And so by the time we got the dishes and pots and pans dried, it was time to start over again. It was that quick because it was 3 meals a day. And we also had a share in the cooking, as Christy said. It was impossible to refuse Christy Pearson or Ralph Brown. I want to say I am a strong-willed person, but nobody could refuse either of those two people. And it was actually a pleasure to do the cooking. It was a lot of fun.
it was great fun. It was great fun. So another aspect about Meherana, especially the Sahavas, is how it's so multi-generational. You know, we have like infants to, you know, as you said, 90 plus. So I think, Karen, well, both of you kind of raised your children there. Any particular memories about kids' activities and things that you want to mention?
Absolutely. Absolutely. From early on, we've been going to Meherana with the children, now they're adults. When Meherana was first purchased, Christy invited a bunch of us from the Bay Area to come up over the kids' spring break. So I remember Sue Jameson came with Jake and Luke. Louise was there with Stephen. Lisa was not able to come because David had a tournament, but Ron Greenstein remembers their whole family coming early on. So Christy met us. She showed us around with the children, and we had a very enjoyable time. In fact, we spent the night. I had a room at Best Western. Louise was across the way. The kids got together and watched movies. So it's always been a lot of fun for the children. As Alan mentioned, when it was really hot early on, we would go to the local pool and got to know a little bit of the community of Mariposa itself. So another thing that happened, and this wasn't at the Sahavases, but there was a board member, Donna, and her son, Steve, and they set up one time to have the children come up and have gold panning in the creek. That was a lot of fun. So this was really a part of our kids' childhood. This was their country place where they could run around, they could be free, they could be with each other. We would see our friends. So for the Bay Area being about 3.5, 4 hours away, this was a really wonderful place for not only the families, but for everybody else who wished to come. And at this point now, our children have been, and all the other children have been bringing their children as infants, as toddlers, as preschoolers. Betty, Sherry, Therese have been fantastic to make a place where the parents can be on their own, and the children can have their own pandal, their own time, and their own playtime there. Our children remember Kathy Riley coming as one of the musical guests, and she let the children come up on stage and dance along with her singing. Our grandson Alden had a chance to be the MC. So everyone's been welcome. The children have been made to feel a real part. And I think it's a real tribute to Meherana community that next weekend, some of the adults, they're younger adults, but they're adults nonetheless, have so excited to come to see Meherana. And we miss it, and we look forward to being back. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I also want to remind people that today, I think it's at 1 o'clock, Rainey will be doing a kids sing-along. So if you have any kids, don't miss Rainey's sing-along. Alan, did you want to say anything else? I know Alden your grandson has played a very special part. And do you just want to mention that, what he does?
But
Pardon?
he really enjoys being the MC of the.
Yeah, he's the MC. He's like, how old? You know.
He'll be 9 in a couple months, and he looks forward to it. And he has a list of all the names. And he wants to make sure he pronounces the name correctly. If I try and help, he shoos me off the stage.
Yeah.
Ralph tries to shoot Ralph off the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like grandson, I suppose, in the long run. He'll have to do this for the next 40 years.
Yeah, it's just so great that, you know, to see them grow up in that atmosphere and feel so comfortable.
Love it.
Yeah.
Grandkids love it. Love it.
So,
can
sorry.
I say something?
Sure.
Can I? Great. I had to miss most of this, but when you were talking about the pandal, the kids' pandal, it reminded me of when it got built. First, it was a temporary structure, but once the harvest, there was a donation, and it was, according to the car we were using, 108 degrees outside. And Chris Pearson was climbing around on these 2x4s, building this thing. And I can't say that my memory serves well enough to know who else was helping him, but there was a small handful of them. And it was so hot. Joanna, we were working in the kitchen then, and the heat was so great, and it was dusty, and the wind would blow. So all that dust, it was like getting breaded before being fried. Your whole skin was covered with it. And there were these guys climbing on these 2x4s in 108 degrees, and that narrow surface, and they just kept going until they got it done. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's a great structure.
I hope I'm not repeating something that was already said, but
no, that's great, Mary. But I just want to mention that last night it was 38 degrees here, so it's not always 108. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but it's not hot this May.
We had hail once the harvest. We sat by the dune with hail.
Yeah, it's pretty unpredictable, but we do have 2 a year, so you can get, you know, either end of the spectrum sometimes.
Actually,
and
sometimes we had to buy agricultural heaters to warm us up.
Yeah, well, there's always the fire early in the morning, you know, that whoever gets up first starts that fire, and that keeps us going, especially in October for the New Life Sahavas. But before we run out of time, I wanted to ask Christy, because the Talbots do not live in Meherana, about how the community around Meherana has grown and like what attracts people to come here. Just talk about that a little bit, because every year it seems like we have some new permanent residents, which is great for the community.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the more people move here, the more other people want to move to be in a Baba community with Baba lovers nearby, which is invaluable. Also, you know, you can't ignore that it's only about, 30 miles from Yosemite National Park, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. But generally outside of the park and all, it's very peaceful and quiet, beautiful surroundings. You can hike and get away in the forest just for the day. affordable living. That's all
Cute little
nice.
town.
But
It's a
yeah,
cute
really
town.
sweet little town where you can go and get groceries and post office and everything and be home in like, 20 minutes. And but the main thing really is a beautiful Baba Center like Meherana there, to enjoy programs and be in his presence there. And I also really am missing the spring Sahavas this year, and just getting together with everyone. Although I must say I saw some faces like Mary Marino and Diana Goodhart, and I went, wow, this is great. So thanks to all of you on the committee now who put in the work on this particular virtual Sahavas. It's just beginning, but it's just amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and we thank Myrtle Beach and their president and their enormous help with putting all this together. And before we end, I did want to say tomorrow morning, you will get a video tour of Meherana and learn what's going on now, what the future plans are. And that's with Therese and Paul Williams and Kebby Brown. So same time, same channel tomorrow. And anybody else want to say anything? I just also want to mention that if you want to see or participate in Morning Arti, that's on the same channel. You do not have to sign out. Just stay tuned. But any other comments or questions, or
I have a comment.
anybody have anything?
I want to thank you all. This was such a beautiful walk down memory lane, and of the beginnings. I have many, many wonderful memories of being at Meherana, caring for Bauji sometimes as a nurse, and just fabulous. So, hey, Baba, everyone. Hi, Christy.
Hi, Paula. Jay Baba.
It's so good to see you.
You too.
Can I throw out, Alan was talking about the view. Alan was talking about the view from the kitchen where you wash the pots and everything. It always felt to me like Baba was there, that he was walking down that hill. And the way I saw him was like the young pictures in Portofino, his hair flowing and the sadra flowing. I just always had that feeling there he was. He was walking, but he was always in the same spot down that hill.
Yeah, you're giving me chills. Yeah.
We'd like to say a little something, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just that Jay Baba, and thanks for putting this on. And we have so many fond memories of Meherana. And our son Joseph also does. He 1 year played tabla for the introduction to all of Bauji's talks. So he has wonderful memories of Meherana too. So Jay Baba.
Thank you.
Baba.
Hey, Baba, can I quickly do a sound check, Giotti? Giotti?
Yes, please go ahead. Are we done with we're moving on to
Yeah, if no one has anything else they want to add.
Yeah,
I
I
have
would
something.
like to say thank you too.
Oh, Monica.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank you so much. That brought up wonderful memories for me, and Dan and I always love to be there. Thank you for
And in the
everything you've
kitchen.
done, and you do.
We should see you.
Thank you, Monica.
I wanted to add
Can I
something.
say just one thing? Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for putting this together. The one little memory that I have every year was Adele, the relationship between Adele and Bao. Because every time Bao talked, Adele would sit in the front row and correct him.
Yeah, just like Adele, right?
They were like an old married couple because Bao would get very irritated, but he wouldn't say anything. And Adele would put her finger up and correct him. And then he'd go on and then she'd do it again. It was a wonderful sight to see, really.
Yeah.
That's all, just a little memory I have that makes me smile every time I think of it.
Yeah.
Jay Baba, Cynthia.
Jay
Baba.
Jay Baba.
Hi.
Or can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I'm making up for the whole hour that I wasn't here. I'm so sorry because I don't know what's been said before, but I just want to say thank you first to Baba and then to everyone that made it possible. Those early years, we worked like dogs and we sweat in that dust blowing around. But what Baba did to the heart and soul was incredible. Those times with Bao, so grateful to the Pearsons for the consistent work they continually put in tirelessly. Few people can work that hard. And my heart will always be touched and deepened by that experience year after year at Meherana with Baba, Bao, and all those dedicated workers.
Jai Baba. I think Andrea wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying hi. Hi to Christy and hi to all of you. I think I know a lot of you and you know me. I went to the very earliest. Do you remember, Christy? I stayed at your house and Bao was there. And then I did go to one of the first Bao stocks, but I can't remember much, really. So this has been wonderful. And I had no idea about the history. But I'm sending love to everyone from Myrtle Beach.
Jai Baba.
Love to you, Andrea. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
I want to say something. I have my hand up and hand up and hand up. What I wanted to share is when Elizabeth Patterson and Marina Machiavelli, they were in Northern California looking for a place for the center that Baba wanted.
Felt like, oh, I have to go away and go away from the let me stop. The child care's person was, the intent was to provide a place for the kids away from the main event. And it got to where, sorry folks, sorry for the confusion. And for you folks should know, this is a video from a year ago. So some of you are responding to the video. We're now in person. I was just showing you last year's Sahavas. And already we got some shares. Let's just go with it. We've got Ron. And then Therese, I'll ask you to talk, because up for if you had something. I think you did. Okay. Sorry. Ron?
Yeah, I have just a short anecdote that I heard not too long ago that reminded when you were talking about the children coming to Meherana. And my granddaughter, Rosalind, had come to two of the Sahavas programs and with her mother and father. And so one day at her preschool, I guess it was, the teacher started to talk about religions, religious affiliations and things like that. And I don't believe that that's really talked about very much in her household or anything. But the teacher sort of pressed her for like, so what is your religion? And she gave it some thought. And then she just said, I think it's called Meherana.
Oh, that's priceless, Ron.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Okay, if you think of it, we have plenty of time to share now. So welcoming all shares. We do have an order. There are some people who are planning to share. Okay, I'm gonna take care of these hands that are up first. Rosalie.
Amidst the chaos, I have something to share.
Okay.
When Elizabeth Patterson, before Mayher Center was, the site was found, she was in Northern California with Marina Machiavelli, and the temperature dropped so low that they said it can't be here, because Baba was careful about had to be good for Northerners and Southerners. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say, and why I got cut off, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okie doke. Thanks, Rosalie. Okay. Marion.
Hi, I'm here in New York City, and I didn't know very much about Meherana except in these last, I don't know, number of years, not very long, as I was mainly involved in Mayor Baba House here in New York City. And many years ago, 1968 on forward, single mom with young kids. So I didn't travel around a lot. So today has inspired me so much since I have 2 children and 4 grandsons, and 3 of them are teenagers. And I knew intuitively they are going to visit that center. I know it. I may be or may not, I don't know. And this inspired me to put together a history of Meherana and check it out with somebody. And I'll do that with other centers. And I just had that very, very high intuitive sense that my kids and grandkids are going to be traveling around to the center. So thank you so much for today. I feel so inspired and included. Thank you.
Thanks, Marion. Now, well, I veered a little off track because I think some people are confused that you were watching a video from a year ago, and it was so good. I thought, why not play it? Why not? It was wonderful what people had to say, and but here we are live, and we have a few people that I've asked to talk, starting with Therese, President. So Therese, do you have any more you'd like to add to? Are you there?
Hello.
Not seeing you.
I'm trying to get the video. It's not working. Oh, there I am.
There you are.
Good morning, everybody. I think I spoke earlier, and the video is definitely highlighted more than what I can say about Meherana and Val, and just there's so much over the years that's developed at Meherana to where we got to today. But I do want to say that we all wear many hats at Meherana, and we do have a need for people to come and be part of Meherana. We have a very slim base of volunteers, and it seems to be the same volunteers that continue to turn up to do all the work at Meherana. And as Paul said earlier and in the video, there's a lot of property, so a lot of work that needs to be done. So if anyone is inspired from hearing what we showed you on the video or through the talk of Christy, get in touch with me, and I'd love to have you come out to Meherana and maybe like do some volunteer work. It is a nice community. We always do something fun when we have guests from out of town. And certainly having Yosemite close to Meherana is an attraction. It's a beautiful part of the world, and I'm very blessed to be here. I wouldn't be here if it was out, not for Baba. As you can tell, my accent is not from Yosemite. I'm actually from Australia, and married Paul Williams and ended up here. And I actually work for our local hospital, John C. Fremont Hospital, and Bao actually visited there. And I think probably others can share more about as to how Bao ended up at the hospital when he had an incident here, if anyone wants to chime in. But that's where I work now. I've been there for nearly 2.5 years, and it's been an interesting time through to COVID. So I just feel that, there's so much love, and it's really a special place, Meherana. And even though Baba, some people say, well, Baba didn't visit, but he is there. You can definitely feel his presence there. And Betty, you said earlier about the chair, that Chris brought out from India. He's there. He's very present. And Betty actually groomed me to take over the children's activities. So since Betty hasn't been attending, I look after I entertain the kids, keep them active, and ensure that they have fun. So we have lots of different activities for them, all different ages. So that's really great. But I think Paul would like to say a little bit more about all the other people. I think there's so many more other people that develop Meherana, especially the early days. Bill Gannett, he was heavily involved. in the Bubba's cabin. Paul can talk to that.
Betty's husband, Dave.
Dave, that's what I'm saying. You want to
Yeah.
talk? There's so many people, and I think we all have to remember. I know Chris gets a lot of mentions, but certainly, you know, there's so many people, and I want Paul to talk more about everyone who was involved. And I think it's important people know that it's a team effort. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's one of those places where, because Baba didn't physically visit Meherana, we bring Baba's presence there through our love and service. So when we gather there, it's very obvious that Baba is there with us. So, you know, as Alan Talbot was saying, you know, to work in the kitchen and to just even wash the dishes, it was such a blessing. You know, the atmosphere of Baba there was just so amazing, and all the participation of the different people. And, you know, the master of dishwashing, Herman Lowe, you know, he always had his apron and his big rubber gloves on, and he was in the kitchen from the moment the Sahava started until the end. And he was instrumental in helping us build the new kitchen after the original one had to get torn down. It was just so dilapidated, and, you know, we were having an infestation of, you know, rodents and things like that, and we needed to have a better kitchen. And Herman was just amazing, and he paid for one of his workers that used to work on a construction site with him to come up and work with us. And, you know, we built the new kitchen, which then it burned down in the Detweiler fire, which was a real shame. But that was where so many memories took place for me. I remember the original kitchen, and then the new kitchen, and now we have the Go Down, which is a wonderful facility too. But we no longer cook our meals there at Meherana. It's become too difficult to host. We don't have the kind of volunteers that we used to help out with that kind of stuff. So what else can I say, Betty, about Meherana? I mean, the other thing that people haven't mentioned, I guess, is that the wonderful feeling of camping there. We don't have enough facilities for everybody to stay in a cabin or to sleep in a house. So there are these tents that we've bought that people can use, or they can bring their own equipment. And it's really nice for people to have that available to them. I don't really know what else to say there, Betty. If anybody else wants to chip in.
If something comes up, we have time, just chime in. I was just gonna quickly share, I have a picture of the campground. I'll share it quickly. This is what it looks like when it's Tent City.
Yeah, that looks like a great campground.
Yeah. It's so nice there, especially in the morning. I do these walks we start at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we walk through Meherana, and one of the places that we go through is the camping area, and everybody there is just getting up and doing their morning routine, and it's just a wonderful feeling. It feels like just one big family. It's really nice. It's this great atmosphere there, and Baba is definitely present. You know, Bao gave us the name Meherana, which means Meher come, and it's really exactly what happens is Baba does come. I remember, I can just tell one little personal anecdote about living there as a caretaker for a number of years. Every time that we had a Sahavas, about 1 to 2 weeks before the actual Sahavas would take place, I would have a dream about Baba, and in that dream, I wouldn't necessarily see Baba, but I would feel his presence, and it was like he had just placed his hand of blessing on Meherana just before the Sahavas. I would feel this really distinct change in the atmosphere about 1 to 2 weeks before the Sahavas would take place. And I always felt that there was a feeling of benevolence in it, like Baba was putting a hand of safety out there for us all. Like he was protecting us and making sure that everybody was going to have a safe and a happy time all together. So that's one wonderful feeling that I had from being a caretaker there.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah. Betty, I would like to say a few things.
Yeah, you're next. Yeah, I got a list. You're okay, Jim.
One of the things that comes to mind so deeply in my heart is how during all the building programs and the preparation programs and the 40 days events when Bao was there, the amount of work that had to be done, it wasn't like we were really working. It was more like we were having a great day. It was almost like, it was almost to a certain extent, to forgive the metaphor, but it was almost like a hippie camp, where everybody was really enjoying themselves. We were working very hard, and the atmosphere was always so cooperative and so focused. And then we would have a meal together, and then there would be music and stuff like that. So I always felt like this was really a wonderful community experience. And of course, Baba was there. We didn't really get to talk a lot about Baba, but he was the focus, and everything that was being done was done with wholehearted effort. Everyone was really there and really contributing. And that's why I went, excuse me, again and again to be part of the building programs and Baba's Meadow Cottage and other things. It just was so heartwarming and fun.
Well, Jim, I know even until recently you drove a day from Oregon to Meherana to be on the board meetings. I thought, wow, that speaks volumes.
No, most of the board meetings we now have on Zoom, but going down for the work programs and going down for the Sahavas and stuff. This year I'm coming down again, first time in a couple years, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, we should mention this again. There is a Sahavas coming up in person in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah, that should be wonderful. Okay, Jim, are you? So we ready
Thank
to go
you.
on to Ralph and Kebby, whichever order you folks want. Ralph is going to talk about the fire some, which is another interesting chapter for sure, and who knows what else. You there, Ralph? There he is. You're muted, Ralph. Can you unmute?
Oh, Kebby must have muted me. Just kidding. So Betty asked me to talk, and I said, I don't really know what I'd talk about. And she said, well, could you talk about the Detweiler fire? So sure, I can talk about that. I think several people mentioned the fire in the video we saw. You could see some of the burnt dead trees, and you saw the Go Down, which is a large building which was built after the fire with the insurance money we got. The Detweiler fire started July 16th, 2017, and it started 18 miles from Meherana. And around here, fire in the summer is always a big threat. Kebby and I have been evacuated from our home twice at least. But usually we figure if it's more than 10 miles away, we're watching it, but we're feeling fairly safe. So that was on a Sunday, July 16th, late in the day it started. On Monday, we started hearing that this fire is really aggressive and it's moving really fast and it's burning really, really hot. And then I think it was late on Monday that we heard from Mary Ann, our caretaker, that the smoke was so bad, it was causing her respiratory problems, which happens a lot around here when there's a fire. And she had to leave Meherana. And then I think very early Tuesday, we saw that an area that included Meherana had been put on pre-evacuation notice, which was really a surprise for a fire that started 18 miles away a day and a half earlier. So, and then I guess Kevin and I and Michaeline and Greg and Chris and Christy were talking back and forth, and we said, wow, just in case, we'd better go there and get Baba's chair and the other things. I don't know if anyone mentioned this, but under Baba's chair, there's a little compartment and there's some stuff stored in there. And off the top of my head, I don't really know what it is, but it's important artifact kind of stuff. But the chair particularly had to be protected. So the 6 of us, I don't know if there was anyone else, I can't remember, went out there, and it was really smoky, and there was a lot of, you'd hear fire engines and stuff. We got there, getting the chair is bolted to the floor. And Chris, I think, brought a bolt cutter. We got the chair, we put it in one of our cars, we covered it carefully. We got the nice rug that was in Baba's cabin. We got all those artifacts. We went up to the Meadow Cottage, grabbed whatever seemed really important to take from there. And then we left. We weren't there that long. On our way out, they had already set up a roadblock on the highway. So we could not, if we had been a few minutes later, we could not have gotten to Meherana. So that was something. As you may know, that fire burned down the kitchen, it burned down the bookstore, it burned down a storage shed that was in that area. But what I would think are the most important buildings in Meherana, the Baba's cabin, of course, and the Meadow Cottage, were protected, and they were protected by firefighters who camped out there for as long as it took, days actually, to make sure that the fire didn't get those buildings. And then afterward, when some of us were able, when they opened the road back up and we were able to go there, the firefighters, one thing they mentioned was that we did a great job of creating defensible space around those buildings, which was nice to hear because many of us have put in countless hours doing brushing and weed whacking to create this defensible space in case of a fire. And the other thing that I didn't hear this, I think Becky Caraco told me this, someone who was talking to the firefighters around Baba's cabin, they said they knew this was a really special building. That's it. Oh, one of the firefighters actually said he peered through the window and he was looking. He goes, I can feel this is a special building, so I'm really curious what's in there. And then Becky, of course, told them about Baba and all that. And that's, oh, one last thing I'll mention. So the insurance company, everything was insured. They came out, they walked around, this guy who seemed like a super nice guy and chatted with me and yada, yada. The first offer was 1/10 of what we finally got from the insurance company by just fighting it on and on and on and not settling for less than we felt we should get. And give a shout out to Alan Talbot, who helped a lot with how to talk to an insurance company, put a little fear in them. And so with the money we got from the insurance, we were able to build the Go Down, which is a really great support building that we would have not been able to have the money to build. And what it's going to support, time will tell. Jai Baba.
Thanks, Ralph. I'm going to quickly show some photos, of some fire photos, just a little gallery here. We go. How do we do that? Okay, here we go. This is the fire truck at right by Baba's cabin. Here's the firefighter standing in front of the cabin. This is David. I heard that he said that my mom would really like this. I think he might be the one who said that he thought it was a special place. This is all the guys relaxing at the Meadow Cottage. And let's see.
A lot of those firefighters at the Meadow Cottage were from Beverly Hills.
Wow.
Beverly Hills Fire Department.
Amazing.
And this is the caretaker house where Marianne lives. You'll be hearing from her shortly. So that's just a couple of photos of the, quite an event. Thanks, thanks, Ralph. So now we'll go to Kebby.
Hey, Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Am I there?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Yes, Kebby, please. Yeah, Kebby she runs the bookstore. Oh, let me get her. Where did she go? Kebby.
I'm here someplace, Betty.
Okay,
there I am.
You're here, right.
Hey, Baba, everyone. Well, I'm not going to talk about memories. I'm not going to talk about past memories. I'm going to talk about today's memories and memories for the future, because Meherana it's an ongoing center. It's you've heard so much about people and their experiences here. Well, the experiences are still here. Baba's still here. His cabin, Baba's cabin. It's one of those amazing places you can just sit and be. You know, like that experience so many have felt of just being at home. And this, to me, it's like Baba's love is like radiant floor heat. It just comes up from the ground at Meherana. So people can come. It's supposed to be available per our mission statement. It's available for group sahavas, which you've heard about, and we have 2 a year. We have a study course. We have people come, steady stream of visitors for individual retreat. We have accommodation available. We have people come for day visits. People come for service weekends. There's many opportunities for service for those that feel inclined. Let me see, I have a few notes here. Also, we've had various other events, and anyone pretty much can propose an event. So if you have something that you feel would be a nice event, you can submit a request for that event. We've had artist weekends, we've had women's retreats, we've had young adult groups, and just a whole variety of wildflower weekends, artist weekends. It's really available. It's here for everyone. It's everyone's home. It's everyone's place. And it's always welcoming. And so often I've seen people arrive where they're tired, they're worn down, and just over the time that they're here, whether they're here on individual retreat or they come as part of a group sahavas, over their time here, you see that their faces become transformed. You see their smiles, their joy. And then when they leave Meherana, they're just refreshed and rejuvenated. So it's a place of rejuvenation. It's a place of safety, of being within Baba's arms. It's just a wonderful place. I'm firmly committed to it, that it feels so very, very special. Now, for me, if I couldn't be at Baba's Samadhi, for me, Meherana is it. It's his cabin is just so, so special. So I encourage people, if you haven't been, or if you have been and it hasn't been a while, or you're just thinking about coming, it's real easy. You just can email visits@meherana.org, and there's lovely facilities, and it's just a great place. I think that's about all my notes I have, but I do want to mention that, as several people have said already, that when Baba's chair was installed, that special Sahavas where we had the procession from the gate down to Baba's cabin, which is, I don't know, about a third of a mile or something like that. And we were singing, and we were all dressed up in Indian clothes, and it was so much fun. And Bauji gave us a little talk. And when we installed the chair, he talked about Baba's seat now is here. And that it really was a sense of that transformation of his power, of his authority, of his beingness is there, and it remains there. And it, and people, even they still constantly, whenever they come, we had recently had a couple here from West Virginia, and they talked about, oh my gosh, we're so glad we came. We had no idea it was going to be so special. So it's here, and I encourage everyone who hasn't come to come and spread the word. And it is just really a great place. So Jai Baba, and thank you, Betty, for organizing this.
Thank you, Kevi. Great for the focus on the future. I didn't get around to talking. I was given a couple of names of young ones, second generation, who have a planning committee, who are working on what comes ahead. So that seems to me we're all, let's see, that would be David Greenstein and Suzanne Mitchell, I believe. Is that right? Among others. So I just want to give a shout out to them, because it's so, I think the universal lament at Baba Centers is all of us 70 somethings are saying, where are the young ones? So you've got them. So good. That's great. Let's see. I guess I put myself on the list next. And just childcare was my bag, my thing. Christy roped me into it, and I reluctantly agreed. But Baba had set it up. I worked for a publishing company that published how-to books, craft kind of things. I had, and I could get any supplies I wanted for a quarter the price or free. So Baba really encouraged, because I was very nervous about taking on a bunch of kids every time, and would feel very put upon, like, oh, why me? Well, I just as soon go listen to the talks. But over the years, it became quite clear to me that we had our own wonderful little sahabas with the kids. It was I was felt it was very kind of a relaxed place, and it was ours. It was our little space, and I got to know a lot of great kids who are now young adults. So let's see. I think they were. I should have written notes, but I'll probably interject later. I know. I did want to mention the community now at Mariposa is really what you're seeing, just a very tiny, segment of Meherana people that who was last there, 16 years ago. Those are the folks that I knew at that time. The community has grown. You have the choys. They have a herd of 300 goats, and they have that's a very interesting aspect of the Meherana communities. The Choi family and their goats. They hire out their goats to mow down hillsides and highways, highway hills. My point is that it's just a really interesting and growing and varied communities. Reza and Suzanne, Reza Abrahimzadeh, who sort of known for his love of Rumi and Hafiz. We know him at Babazoom that way. There must be many. Michaeline is new to me. The homeopathy, I believe. Jacko, who is coming on, is a local acupuncturist. It's become a really interesting community. thanks to us, thanks to Baba. Mariposa has, I mean. Okay, I'm going to go on to Marianne, caretaker, she's been a fabulous caretaker for a while, quite a while. She drives around in her, I don't know, it's a special kind of vehicle. You just really preside, Marianne, over the place. So Marianne Lessier, recently married to her sweet husband Dennis, who passed. So, all right, Marianne, let's do this. Let me find you. Where are you? Marianne. Okay. Okay, here you are. Okay.
Hey, Baba. Thank you, Betty. Thank you for inviting me and letting me know that this wonderful gathering was happening on Zoom this morning. And my love goes out to everyone. And I didn't prepare any speech. It's just the joy that I'd like to share with all of you of how wonderful Meherana is. You have no idea how incredible it is to live here. And we've had some fabulous caretakers in the past, Jack Caraco and Becky. And, they're always, Jack is always here on the ground when there's work to be done. He's always here and he's always contributing. And we also have our first caretakers. I don't know if Jack and Becky were the first, but we also had Nick Skoke and Georgine Tarbox were very early caretakers here for a while. And Georgine has passed on to Baba, but Nick still lives in Merced, and he comes up here at least once every 2 weeks to help me. And he has been doing that for many, many years. So he has been a wonderful, loving presence here to everyone. And you don't hear from him very much, but he's one of those silent, important people in the background who do so much for Meherana. He comes on work weekends, but his main focus has been to help me, because a lot of the caretaking years I've spent here, I've done the work by myself. So he is very generous and loving and fun and happy. He's a great Baba sunshine person. So I just am so grateful to him. And we have our core group of local resident Baba lovers who care for Meherana and have for so many years. And their stories and their wisdom and their ready hands to come and do all the work that's required to prepare for Sahavas. And throughout the year, well, we have, trees that fall that need to be cut up, and repairs that need to be done in all the different buildings that we have here. And like Kevin said, I'd like to just highlight some of the newer things that have been happening. And we've had guests now since the COVID restrictions were lifted. We've had guests coming since September or actually July of last year. And a lot of the people that have been coming lately are just so happy to be here, and their joy overflows, and they want to work. So I'm finding projects for them to do. So many little fun things there are to maintain Meherana, and when they bring their children, that's even more fun. The Stoltfitz family from Walnut Creek are frequent visitors, and they have their two absolutely charming young boys, William and James, and they just want to work while they're here. They've hauled, they've cleaned areas of sticks and limbs, and they've painted guide rocks. They've there's always something that they want to do, and they love to. I fixed them up with a couple fishing poles that belong to Dennis, and they go down there and fish. They don't catch anything, but they have a great time. And I also take them for little rides in that funny vehicle that Betty was mentioning. Is actually a fantastic vehicle. It's a ATV, but it's actually a UTV. It has a dump back on it and a winch on the front, and it's just a real rugged, happy little thing called Buddy. His name is Buddy, and Buddy is my buddy. I couldn't do this job without Buddy, because Buddy can go anywhere. I think Buddy could climb a tree if you asked him to. So he's a fabulous four-wheel drive, rough vehicle that gets around and does all this work. And so some other visitors that Kevin mentioned, the ones from West Virginia, they had never been here before. And they were just floored of how fabulous Meherana was, and the Baba's presence being so strong. And they wanted to work too. So I gave them jobs and they did them. One day we went out and cleared and remarked a new trail that Paul and Ralph and Therese and several others had made the year before. So we did that. That took all one day. And luckily it wasn't too hot. So we had a good time doing that. And the other thing, they wanted more work to do. So lo and behold, I said, well, you know, the Meadow Cottage windows really need cleaning, and the screens as well. And they said, great. So they did that all by themselves. They cleaned every window in the Meadow Cottage inside out and washed the screens as well. So, you know, these are the kind of happy things that are happening here at Meherana. And it's, I don't have the history that a lot of you folks do with Meherana, because I only came here in 2016. So actually last month, April, was my 6th year here. And I consider it an answer to a silent prayer that I gave to Baba when I first started going to Myrtle Beach. And I used to think, oh my gosh, these people that work here, Arthur and Ellen and all those awesome people that work there at Myrtle Beach. And I used to think, that's got to be the most perfect job in the whole world, to work at a Baba Center. And lo and behold, when I came out here in 2010 for the first time to catch Bao and get to see Meherana, it was my first time here. And at that time, I wasn't able to make a commitment to move here. But in 2016, that opened up. And so came out and was told by Christy Pearson. She said, oh, I'm so glad you're coming. You know, we're coming out to look for a place to live in Mariposa. And she said, did you know that the caretaker position was open? And I said to her, what's that? And so then she told me that there's a resident caretaker on the property and a little bit about what the caretaker does. And I said, well, I'm definitely going to apply for that when I get out there. So, so that's what I did. And they gave the job, and I've been here ever since. And I consider it a direct answer to an unspoken prayer that I gave to Baba, that I never asked for it, but he gave me my heart's desire. So
Marianne,
what?
can you tell just briefly the story about your kitty Ram, and the fire?
Oh, right. Well, I have a dog named Sita and a cat named Ram. And during the when the Detweiler woke me up in the middle of the night with smoke, I couldn't breathe. And I looked out the window, and the ash was falling like huge snowflakes, and it frightened me so much. I just gathered up my emergency stuff and I left. I couldn't find Ram, the cat. I got the dog, got some personal belongings, and I couldn't find Ram, the cat. And so I didn't know what to do. I just knew I had to leave. And at that time, I was really new to Meherana, and it didn't dawn on me, you know, to go down and get the chair and the artifacts and the famous Lynn Ott paintings and things. It didn't even cross my mind, and I feel bad about that to this day. But if it ever happens again, I'll remember But anyway, so I had to leave Meherana in the middle of the night, and I couldn't find the cat. So it wasn't till 4 days later when Becky was the first one on the property that she found Rom. Rom had crawled underneath the ramp